First off, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Theresa Stirling, and I'm a full-time encaustic artist and now doing some mentoring, coaching, lots of live sessions and online courses, as well as our new membership collective, which is now kind of a deeper dive into great content, thoughtful content, growing a business or marketing, entrepreneurship, live sessions, exclusive content, weekly Q&As, that kind of thing. By the way, this audience video is primarily geared toward that group. We've invited others to watch as we're getting the membership word out there. So thank you for being here. Thank you for joining the collective and all those things. Um, let's see. The topic today is how to recover when you've overworked an art piece. And I relate to it immensely. It's been the story of my practice and my life for years, off and on, especially just getting started. But I still overwork a piece, and that's just, it's human nature. Um, a bit on the history of my practice. I'm a self taught artist. I have taken art intensives along the way from local luminaries who work in encaustics, but also at Pratt Fine Arts in Seattle. They have a really great program if anybody's interested in all kinds of um, multidisciplinary things relating to the arts. Anyway, encaustics is the one thing that I've really gone deep on, but I also have a business and marketing background as a career. I was in the biotech industry for years. I studied economics in college and got my bachelor's in that. And so I really love the intersection of art and business. So when you overwork a piece, which happens to all of us at any point, truly, and when we find ourselves in that position, as I even have with this one early in the layers, I'll show it to you a little bit better in a few minutes. We then are standing at a crossroads, and that crossroads looks like, do I keep working at it, hoping that it will get back on track? Or do we go over it with some sort of block it out medium, like it might be gesso if you're doing acrylics, or I'm not sure what you do in oil paints specifically, but in caustics, you can go over it with a more opaque layer of, say, white or cream or something that just kind of erases everything. Or what's really neat in encaustics is you've actually got some options. And those options look like you can warm it up and kind of move the wax around, manipulate it either with the fire, the flame, or your tools, or you can just gently warm it in encaustic art, and then you can take off carefully the uppermost layer or two. And that's unusual and unique to this medium. So that's always an option for you or anybody in that position. I'm sort of looking at that with this piece. This encaustic that I started working on, it's a photo encaustic. So there's an image at the base, which is often how I work in my practice. Um, I started to get too dark and heavily textured in these areas. I was probably using up something in a can. I was probably a little distracted with doing a demo and thought, well, I'll just put it on. We can deal with it later. But now I'm having to deal with it. And I also had um, an interaction with another person that I do some business and art mentorship and coaching with one-on-one. And that person was also wondering how to bring imagery back to a piece that maybe had gone too far in one direction or lost the imagery that originally it had started, but how do we morph it into this? And those are all great questions. And the one thing I would say is it's all part of the creative path. It really is. It's part of the creative process to occasionally overwork an area, overwork a piece. But now we want to talk about how do we course correct. In this case, I just plan to warm up the top layer and take some of it off. So I'll do that with you while you're here. I'll make sure your view is just a little bit more focused on it. And it's really great to have you guys. I find that teaching keeps my practice fresh, it keeps my content fresh. And we'll get back to that as it relates to this whole topic. I think bringing a freshness into your practice is something that will continue to help us drop in and be in a real flow state. And that flow state is what keeps us creating art that doesn't require course correction or what have you. Let's see if I can do this balance view for you and for me to see. You guys for joining. It's great to have you for 30 minutes today. I'm going to try to keep on somewhat of a time duration so that you all can plan what else you're doing. There is just so much to cover. There are so many interesting topics to me. I think we will just keep focused on a topic, and then usually an overarching topic has some really juicy subheadings. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. So in this case, I have overworked the dark areas on this piece. And so I am going to, on the areas especially that are in view for you, I'm going to warm them up with heat, in this case fire. I use a blowtorch, and then I'm just going to lightly scrape that top layer. And while we're doing that, I can, have some quietude with you. I mean, I'm free-forming it too, but we can also kind of discuss other concepts in art and why some things happen the way they do. So let's go here. So with the torch, for those of you who haven't used it much, some of you have, some haven't, I like to keep the flame at kind of a dull whisper roar. That way you're not shooting wax everywhere and you can still work on it. And I'm merely warming up the entire area just so I can go in and lighten up these extra heavily troweled areas of dark. And this is kind of what I would do with any piece. I'm going to show you another one as well. Just so happens to have two big personal pieces that are pet projects of mine that I have overworked. And I'm not sure what that says about me at that time. Could have been due to demos or that I was deep in conversation or something, but I honestly enjoy working like this, where we're chatting, we're having a conversation. I'm discovering that I do enjoy teaching. I especially enjoy teaching from the comfort of my studio, just because it allows me to have that same natural habitat, draw on all my materials, and I'm comfortable here. I'm used to working here all the time anyway, so I'm not out of my element, and I'm acting and behaving and painting and working as though I were in my regular routine. But the teaching helps keep things fresh for me, and that's really key. And I want to touch on that a little bit more as it relates to how we create our art, when we overwork it, and why that might be. So all I'm merely doing is taking up a bit of wax off the top layer, and I'm doing it carefully. It's almost like a little minor surgery. You're just sort of scraping along. And this pottery scraping tool, just so valuable. I have many of them in many sizes. This long-handled one is interesting. It gives good reach across a wide area, but I don't get the intense push in that I get with these. This guy's showing some wear and tear. It keeps popping out, so I probably need to put it in the waste bin, but I don't want to. I love it so much. And some of the wax, a lot of it I do recycle and make it into blacks and browns. So keeping a pretty zero waste studio the best that I can. Studio is a studio, but you can reuse stuff and it makes it both economical and it just makes sense. You can make cool colors that way. And I'm a earth tone painter, so the blacks and the browns, I always need a base for those. which is often recycled wax, but not all the time. My studio practice is primarily doing custom work, some for showrooms and inventory, and it's, sometimes I'll do a collection if I'm either asked to or feeling that motivation. But for the most part, I'm not in galleries and not a wide representation on showrooms. I'm self-represented online, and so that's been nice. It's been really nice. And growing and expanding our courses and membership has been really cool too. It puts me in contact with you all, but it also helps me dig deeper into the contents and topics that interest me. So we're course correcting here. This piece was overworked. It was too dark and heavy in this area. Now I'm going to do the same thing with further on in the piece. And I think I'll just try to slide it down so that you can see what I'm doing and I'm still kind of in the same workspace. Seems to be working well. Okay, so we're gonna lighten up this area also. And if you have any questions or just want to say hi, type it in the chat, the question, the Q&A, the comments. I want to know where you're from. Are you a creative? Are you an entrepreneur? What are you doing art-wise, if so? Or, what questions are you pondering? And I'll either try to get to them today or I'll try to get back to you in the comments as soon as possible. I do read all of them and respond best I can. Okay, so this area also gets warmed up. Again, for those of you just joining us or rewatching, we are course correcting when you've overworked a piece, and it happens to all of us. It's human nature, and sometimes it's just we've lost sight of the original goal and image that we were going for. And that's just a natural part of creating. It can have to do with a lot of different things. You might not have been really keeping an eye on what your ultimate image would look like, or perhaps you weren't feeling it as much that day, or you were lost in thought or conversation in your mind or with someone else, or you're think tanking something else. It's okay. I think it's all part of it. And don't be hard on yourself about it. A lot of my overworking comes from second guessing myself, or an uncertainty or an insecurity. And I'm still working through that all the time, saying, am I good enough? Am I a real artist? All those things that, we struggle with. Less so more and more as I'm, pretty clear on the work that I do create and the work that I do put out into the world. But I also think one of the solutions to not overworking a piece is quite possibly working in smaller bits over time. And that way you're not going really long down a path and having to course correct often. If you notice that you are having to rework pieces often, maybe just kind of take a look and say, are you showing up refreshed? Are you showing up renewed? Are you showing up enthused and being, open and gentle with yourself when you're creating? So just warming up this area a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfectly scraped, but for those of you watching along or listening, I am warming up this wax on the encaustic piece, and I'm just taking off really the uppermost layer or two. It's really fun, actually. It's kind of meditative. Let's see. Some of these areas probably don't need to be that dark. I leave mark making in most of my pieces now. I've learned that is a part of it, and an important part of what shows up in the art ultimately. Mark making is an art form. It's a signature. It's all kinds of important things. So I encourage you all to leave what you might consider to be the accidents, the drips, and so on, and leave them as marks. So what I'm inclined to do next, this is an evolution in progress, is just take some clear beeswax medium. It's beeswax into Mar resin, and I am just going to kind of painted over these darker areas so that it starts to just create kind of a nice blurred effect. And then I might hit them with more of a diluted black brown. So we're just creating an effect. I know you can't see it super closely, but it's as a horizontal format. I'm still refining this, but I'm just creating uh, a blurred effect, almost like if someone had cataracts. It's like, ooh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of blurry. And you'll notice I sometimes like to vignette my corners, like down here. You can't see it quite as well, but it's kind of a darkened corner. Like vignette the corners just a little bit and then go over them so they lighten up. Okay, still just going over this with essentially it's just clear beeswax, but as you spread it on, it sort of blurs all the imagery. And more, I am trying to create art that is true to me. I love an atmospheric, almost impressionistic, sort of blurred looking landscape or mountainscape. That really resonates with my style. So here we are, um, just blurring this area. That's one solution for me. When someone's overworked an area that's very large, especially in encaustics, for example, if they're doing a mountainscape and they've just lost the form, or it might be a botanical, they've just lost the form of it all. What you want to do is almost consider just adding a lot of white for contrast. And in the case of encaustic, I find that white shellac, so that's liquid shellac with dry pigments. I use the Gamblin brand, and you can find those in my Amazon shop, the ones that I use. I've taken the guesswork out for you. Um, and then spread it over an area, give it some time, and then you can fire it lightly, and it opens up all those cells in a really cool way, like a lacy pattern. It's called reticulated. And then you have more of a peek at what's underneath, but it's not just this big saturated area of color. So I like that little trick, and I've used it a lot, especially in clutch moments where I'm trying to get a piece finished in a timely way. So this turned out to look really good, I think. Um, I'm going to replace some of the medium in this can because I like having a small can of medium when I'm working. So that's what we've done to start. Then I'll come back with a color that is similar but kind of forgiving. So I'm over here at the hot plate. Let's see. I'm I'm winging it. Shocker, I know. I'm always winging it. Let's do this. I'm going to set this wax here for just a second. And I'm going to hit this area with fire just to fuse it where we soften. So again, for those of you who are tuning in, welcome. I'm Theresa Stirling. I'm an encaustic artist and doing coaching and mentoring. I am showing people how to rework a piece where you've gone too far and overworked it. And I do want to touch on ways to ward that off in your own personal life and practice, because I've got some solutions and I've given a lot of thought to it. And for those of you in our membership, I'll be sending out a letter that unpacks that topic quite a bit. I'm pretty excited about it as an overarching topic. And I am staying on point with about 30 minutes today. You can always rewatch this at your leisure or request it. So I'm just rhythmically warming this up. It will be cloudy for a little bit until it cools and hardens. That's the thing about working with encaustics. You learn to go through visually, but when you fire something or you apply heat from a heat gun, it's going to kind of cloud up for a while. So you have to build that into your overall visual assessment. So one little trick that I'm going to show you guys, this is one of my favorite tricks as an artist in studio with wax, is you see how some of this like just forms on the can itself, and I'm digging around in there trying to get to the liquid state. Here's kind of more the liquid. First of all, I'll drop some of this down and just kind of use it as a layering tool. But I will also take some of this that's not in its fully hardened state with my gloved hands, and I will merely just work it into the piece quite physically. And it just gives me kind of a hint of that color, which is great reverberation in a piece. And I'll even like paint with it, like it's a chalk stick. And then I'll go back and just, hit it with fire and fuse it. But it really kind of creates an effect. You can do it around the edges. You can vignette the corners with it. But what it does is it's cohesively tying in the color from that lower area up into the rest of the painting. And visually, people respond to that pretty well if they can see cohesion of color tied in. So believe it or not, we're still recovering from overworking a piece, but that gives you a pretty good example of how I'm doing that with this piece. I will darken this landmass area that got too dark for sure, but it needs to happen slowly in bits over time. And that right there is going to be one of your keys when you're in practice, your studio practice or your creative practice, is just don't try to do too much in one shot. That's often what causes us to overwork a piece. So I would say that's probably the main nugget I would give you. And then I'm going to move over to another piece that I'm going to have you sit in with me and recover from. But wax is an interesting medium. It is both forgiving and unforgiving, both. You can do some really cool things to manipulate it, but it also does have a mind and a structure of its own. So you have to really find your step and your cadence with it, but it's worth exploring deeper and deeper all the time. All right, so that's there. Now, since I added more of that heavily textured wax, I'm going to just check our time, check who's in. Oh, thanks for joining us, you guys. Let's see, we've been going for, okay. So yeah, we've got some time here. So let's warm this up, and then I want to give you just a few thoughts about how to stave off overworking a piece, and we'll unpack that and talk about it more when I'm over there working on the piece behind me. So you guys get to work on 2 pieces with me today, which is really cool. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy chatting with you guys and just sharing with you stuff I've learned. I'm always making mistakes, and they're not mistakes, like they're not. They're part of it. We're all under construction, for sure. For sure. It makes it more fun if you can embrace it. And I'm learning all the time. I'm not great at it, and I can be pretty hard on myself, so I'm working on that. And I welcome any of your inputs too, you guys, that you have. So what I'm in effect doing is I'm just taking and melting a lot of the heavily textured areas of this piece, because I will build it up another 10 or 12 layers. And this is a piece that I'll have in inventory. It will be available for purchase. It's a pretty desirable size. I think it's 30 by 60, 30 by 50 or 30 by 60. And horizontal is just a really nice in-demand size for especially homeowners, but for office spaces too. I love doing this so much. It's so primal to melt wax. And what you'll notice when I'm working is I'm dropping into the experience. I'm feeling it with all of me and more. I'm feeling it with a buoyancy, which I think is reflected in my work. I'm feeling it with a hopefulness. It's spring. Spring's trying to burst forth outside. I just took my dogs for a walk run. I'm feeling all of those really good things, and I bring that into my practice. I bring it into my work. And I would say, think deeply about the kind of work you want to make. I know the kind of work that I've been making, and I know the kind of work that I put off or I procrastinate because I'm now tapping into more of the work that I really want to do. And it's less tight lines and it's more like this. It's loose, it's expansive, it's atmospheric. So, one of the things you can do to make sure you're not overworking pieces is think hard about the type of work you're making. And also in your own life, start thinking about some of the daily activities you do as art forms. So, if you're doing the laundry, I know it sounds crazy, but as you're folding up those pieces as they're clean and they smell good and they have beautiful colors and textures, just drop into that experience. I do the same thing when I'm in my studio now and I can just go for hours. Change it up a little bit, bring some freshness in. You might bring in some fresh flowers, you might bring in a book on something that's motivating you and just have it nearby. And then subsequently take out a few things that are causing clutter, that are blocking some of your energy flow. But really try and drop into that flow state and do work that you love. If you're putting it off, sometimes that suggests it's not work that's really in alignment with what we love. And do get clear on your why, whatever you're doing. If it's art or your business, how you're running it, how you're approaching it, all of these things help us to create work that's truly resonant with where we're at and also expansive. All right. So that's, to me, this is a better start on this piece for the early layers. I know it's probably very subtle from your perspective, but what I basically did was made it so that these areas aren't as heavy and dark. I was having to recover, so I just basically warmed it up with you here, and then I scraped it out. So that's one. This guy's kind of sticking, so I got to get him loose. Sometimes there's little tricks on these torches. If a switch is sticking, it's just too gummed up with the wax. And the workaround for this is you can take a heat gun and just very lightly kind of melt off the wax right there so that it's less gummed up. But it looks like I might have to switch over on this one and grab another one. So I'm going to take you guys to another piece that, what do you know, I overworked. It's our theme today. And we have just a few more minutes. If you all have any questions, be sure to pose them. I'm going to move you over to this other table with me. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And I love doing these. This is a lot of fun with you guys. Let's see if I can find out if there's any questions. Can I? Oh, I'm going to figure it out. Oh, you guys, I'm so happy to see all of you joining. This is fantastic. All right. We're going to see how artfully I can move this over to another perspective. My studio's kind of a mess right now, but it's kind of always a mess, if I'm honest. All right, let's give you a perspective. So we have this cool piece here. And what do you know? It's a photo encaustic. It does have a lot of subtle details, but I think I got chatting or doing something and I was in a hurry perhaps, and I didn't do my normal good base layering, but I also overworked it. So it got too heavy. And now I can't see, wait, where did the eyes go? Where did the horns go? Where's the shoulder? Where's the big belly? So now, and don't worry, this line will get filled in. But so now I'm having to guess on where the eye outline is, where these things are, the mouth. It's just too much. So what we're going to do is warm up some of that area and scrape it out. So a couple other things, I'm just going to focus on the piece, but I do want to tell you a few other thoughts I have about how to keep your practice fresh. And when your practice is fresh and you're in a flow state when you're here, by the way, I always use reference images. How to keep your practice fresh and drop into a flow state is going to yield better work. Better work that's in alignment with you, but also better work that ultimately you will find yourself having to rework less, or that you don't look, that you don't look at it and say, oh, I just don't love it. I don't know what to do. Like, you'll feel good about it. So back to the heat source and melting some of that and scraping it. And while we're doing that, I'm going to chat with you guys just a little bit about some ideas I have. I took a few notes on things that are helping me. And as I mentioned, if you bring some freshness into your studio, like for example, some people like to have company when they're in the studio. And so they will bring, you know, they'll say to someone, hey, how about we have a studio date night, with a friend and just say, I'll buy dinner, I'll get takeout once you come over, or have a glass of wine on the couch. And I've got a cozy little nook so people can sit and have wine and have a fire. It's really kind of cool. But when you can do those kinds of things, sometimes that brings a freshness to your work. And if you're doing little bits at a time, you're not really trying to like cram in finishing something, that's a good thing. So bring freshness into your studio practice and also try to work in more being present to the daily things. I've intertwined my art in my life so that they really intersect. If I'm out walking right now, I feel like I'm in Kyoto, Japan. It's like pink cherry blossoms everywhere in the Pacific Northwest. And I'm just taking it in. And then I have a buoyancy, and the buoyancy transfers to my work. So all of those things I think are worth paying attention to. And that's kind of where I wanted the theme to go today. Are we almost at time? Oh, we are. All right, so I'm just going to quickly warm up an area, not to rush it or the process or you, but it will give you the final peek at how I start to undo a piece I've overworked. So here we are. These areas got way too thick for me. And they're not even quite the color lot that I think I was really desiring. So I'm warming them lightly, and my trick will be just take off the first layer or two. I'm just working one area to show you lightly. Set that aside. There. And let me make sure if there's anything else we talked about, getting clear on what you're doing. And overall, you know, just do anything you can to make your own creative practice or your business pursuits and endeavors as it relates to all of this. Do everything you can to make that just a really cool experience, a really wonderful, enjoyable practice that you look forward to. Um, Again, make your space inspired, keep your work on point with what you love. If you find you're just doing the same subject matter over and over and you're losing the passion for it, change it up. It's okay. That's part of staying fresh. Just change it up for you. You'll produce much better work. And there's always ways to back out of stuff. And this is proof with two recent pieces on tables that I overwork stuff often. I try not to, but it does happen. And I've been avoiding coming in here because I have to course correct. And that's not what brings me into my studio practice. I want to come in here not because I need to course correct and fix something, but because I love it. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today. I will keep doing that on this piece. I will warm up the areas that got too heavily troweled. I got way too far out of my own skis on this piece. But bring in some freshness, bring in some flowers, invite someone into the studio to have a glass of water or coffee or wine and chat with you. And if that suits you and your working style, travel where you go, fill yourself, infuse your mind with beauty, and the beauty will infiltrate itself into your life every day, and that will also come through in your practice, and you will get very clear on the work you want to create. So that's what I have for now. I love that you guys were here. I'm going to see if I can figure out if there are any questions, which I will address in real time, and if I can't figure it out, then I'll answer them in the chats. But mostly, I want to thank all of you for being here. It really does mean the world. It's my pure pleasure to show up and show up as my real self, which is highly imperfect, highly motivated, highly fulfilled, um, true, genuine, and just doing what I love. And that's with you guys along. So be sure to check out our membership. For sure, it's at next level with teresastirling.com. Sterling is spelled with I's. Um, and I want you guys to be a part of that. It's the price of a tall latte a month, and you'll get some great content. You'll get some lives. You get some Q and A's. Let's see if I can figure out. Oh, they're not showing it to me right now. I have not figured out how to do this across platforms yet, but I will check the questions. I really want to thank you for being here, and yeah, just do it. Make more of your life art, an art form, and make more of your art forms part of your beautiful, expansive, ever evolving life. And it's only going to get better from here. I really believe that. So thank you for being along today. Check in with us on any questions, thoughts, topics you might want to explore further. There isn't any art or business or life topic that I wouldn't want to explore with all of you. And yeah, we'll chat again really soon. This was a live for the week, and we'll be sending that out to all of the members who couldn't join us today. The membership collective is rolling, rock and rolling. I am just so heartened with you guys joining and also taking our courses, being on our Facebook page, and anything, just social media. I'm really trying to do more long form videos here on YouTube. I'm fascinated with the long form format. I think it suits my style the best. I of course love the shorts and the reels, but I like the long form video. I'm doing an awful lot of new cool things in marketing. I'd be happy to share some of those things with you who want to go deeper into the business realm. And that's what I have for you today. So great to see you. And we've